Let's talk about our today's guest, Lalit. Lalit has decades of career in technology. He has built companies, taken companies to the next level, and recently he wrote a book on his years of experience as a leader. And he talked about new kind of leadership. Now, why it is so important in today's paradigm? Today, humanity is dealing with a phenomenal challenge. We saw what's happening especially in last 18 months. COVID has completely disrupted our lives. Nobody has the right answers. Everybody's trying to figure out what is the right answers. There's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of challenges, and even governments are struggling to find right answers. So when I reached out to him and I asked him about the leadership, and can the right leadership provide better environment for our world to thrive and especially come out of this COVID situation. So Lalit, welcome to our show.
Thanks for getting me on the show. I am excited. I'm looking forward to simple questions from you.
Well, this show is not famous for simple questions, Lalit. So we always ask really tough questions. But I'll give you the simplest question of the show today. Do you have a confession for our audience?
Couple of learnings in my career. One, the biggest one is that I realize now that the older you get, the more you realize what you don't know. The second confession is that I wish I could have spent more time with my children when I was growing companies. So I didn't do it. And I regret it. And that's the biggest confession. I never told them that I've not spent time with you. The third one is a great learning, which is that when you are in a company or in a firm and you know who you are and you know what you are capable of, you also know your worth in that company. But when you realize that others have stopped acknowledging that, that's time for you to leave.
I have a little different take on the learning. What I realize, more you learn, more you realize how little you know. Can you share just one lesson or experience you have, which is truly inspiring? Or any story from your life?
I mean, there are many stories which I've actually mentioned in my book also. There are many things which happened, which actually changed my way of thinking. I mean, it's not that I was a great leader, born as a great leader. I learned on my own. I saw people leading, I saw how they function, and there was no training program for being a leader. You can read books, you can understand what part of it, you still don't know how part of it. So,
it's like the kids, Lalit, they don't born with a manual. So there is no way you can teach that.
No way you can. Yeah, absolutely. So you have to experience it. You have to find, you can make mistakes. So there are a lot of things happened. I have gone through a lot of adversities, in the business when you have.
Oh, you even failed?
I failed. That's how I learned.
Exactly. I want to make sure for our audience, please remember, everybody I brought on our show, except one person, said the same thing. We all fail. And only by failing, you learn and you become better when you rises from your ashes. Lalit.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if somebody says that, okay, I have never failed, maybe there are people who have never failed. I mean, whatever they touched became gold, but I think it's not true. Most of the time we find adversity, sometimes it is in your hand, sometimes it is out of your hand, because let's say if 9/11 happened, nobody knew what's going to happen. We had a great business in airlines, and when things go bad, suddenly the whole 25% of the business was in question. So, and you have to come out of it. You have the responsibility of the people who work in your organizations to take care of that. So those are the tough, challenging time in which you start learning. You make mistakes at that time. I mean, because nobody has seen this adversity.
Sure.
So same thing is happening in this pandemic. There are leaders who nobody has seen this time. So they are taking action. So some are good, some are not so good. So I think that the learning out of it, when you come out of it, and then you realize that I will handle it much better next time if same thing happens or similar thing happens. Yeah.
When we talk about leadership, two words I always hear from every single person I talk to. The most important thing as a leader, when people look at you, the number one question they have in their mind is, can they trust you?
The biggest trait or the biggest skill you have to demonstrate being a leader is that people should trust you. And why people trust you? Because if you're transparent, if you're not what you are, if you're showing them some other face than what you actually are, people are not going to trust you.
Absolutely.
They don't trust phony. They trust you, real you. I mean, what you are inside and what you are outside, you are same. So then the trust becomes higher. So that's the fundamental.
Yeah. So Lalit, I find a lot of time as a leader, you want to get things done. Because for trust, once this trust is built, it takes over the years a lot of time to build the trust. Trust is not instant and broken in seconds. But the point I'm trying to make it is for our audience especially, trust is very, very crucial for the success of the organization. And for the leader, he needs to understand if his team cannot trust him, nothing will happen, no matter what.
Will happen. Mm-hmm.
So question is, how as a leader, what you really need to do? Are there like some formula or things you have to do or 3 traits of the leader? How to build that trust? Because not everybody, as you and me both know, is a great communicator.
If you're able to communicate your ideas to the team or to the people you're talking to, that's a good communication. That means if people understand what you mean, it's a good communication. So the biggest mantra for building trust is never tell lies to your team, right? In the business, people say, how is possible? Because you can't tell everything to everybody. We understand you can't tell everything to everybody, but you can't tell lies to everybody. So that is number one. The biggest thing which I learned is that you can't go to your team and lie about something.
Yeah,
because they will find out over a period of time and the trust is broken. As soon as they find out that you lied to them, the trust is gone. So one thing is very clear, that you tell the truth. We are in trouble, tell them we are in trouble.
In last 18 months, we have seen leaders, especially around the COVID situation. And as a common citizen, I felt betrayed so many times. I felt people are not providing us the right information. And I try to understand the psychology, why they do that, why a leader, in spite of being an amazing leader, says things. So one thing I realize is fear. They don't want the team and the people around them to be in the fear. So that's one reason I find, which is a negative and positive, because if your team is in fear, you know things will fail. Irrespective of whatever you want to do, you don't want the morale, you don't want the team spirit to go down. Doesn't matter, because we both understand, being in a C-level positions, is money comes and money goes. Customer comes, customer goes. We can continue to have more revenues, less revenues, but if you lose team, that's everything. In any business, doesn't matter what business you are in, your core team is everything. That is your IP, not the software they have built, not the some bunch of line of source code. It's the team, because team makes things happen. So one challenge I have, and the question I want to ask is, how should a leader communicate and provide transparency without being worried about the fear? Now, I'm going to bring that to a environment in US, India, Brazil, all the countries. In the leaders level, we were told don't wear a mask because there was no mask available. Then wear mask and don't wear mask. Very simple example. then get vaccination, don't get vaccination. So there's a lot of confusing information. And I'm assuming the base or the bottom line is fear, because they don't want infrastructure to fail. They don't want system to fail. They don't want people to be worried. They don't want people, in fact, as you know very well, I don't know if you have read it or not, gun sales are record high. You can't buy bullets. If you don't know, it is 10 times more expensive than it used to be before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What that shows you, people are fearful. People are scared for their lives. Now, in such a scenario, which is such a complex, intertwined situation, how can a leader be transparent?
Well, I think you brought a very good point. So let's analyze the situation in a different manner. So here is a pandemic which hit the world, and there are some countries who did well, there are some countries who didn't. Most of the countries didn't, right? If you take the percentage wise, right? So why there are two parts to it. One part is the leadership, which is I wish the leaders would have been truthful and taken the decision based on data. All their decisions, all their communication could have been a data driven. That is one, which was not, right? They had the data, they hide the data, or some countries even didn't have the data.
So, and then I will just to summarize for our audience, what you are saying is you are willing to accept the consequences. That's the data, because there's a data, this is going to happen, accept the consequences, number one.
So that's important, because that could have saved more lives than what we have lost. The second thing is the humanity itself. Mm-hmm. So we, as humans across the globe, 7 billion people plus, right?
7.3.
More than 50% didn't accept the fact that we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the biggest challenge, I think, going forward. Will be one, leadership didn't tell the truth, had the fear of telling the truth, had the fear of unknown, rather than saying, here are the facts and this is what the science is saying, let's do this, 1, 2, 3. And then some people will follow, some people will not. In some countries, it became political. In some countries, it became because of the lack of resources. And that's why we are struggling today. I was hoping, to be honest, I was surprised when pandemic hit and when we were going down the hill from the situation. I didn't know that people will behave like that. If you're saying I will be helping others to succeed around you or helping others to save life, then your thought process change.
And that's what happened to me. I went ahead and exactly what you're saying, I go for a greater good. We started United Against COVID, raise a lot of funds, work really hard, build a pretty large team. We have almost now 1,100 volunteers, help people around the clock. It's a phenomenal work. So I completely agree with you, the greater good. So what I'm hearing is the second thing you are saying is you have to think of a greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So accepting consequences. Second is work on a greater good, because you want to be out of fear for yourself and your team.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You can't be, if you're a leader, you have to be fearless. You have to be.
Say it, Lalit, but the challenge is how do you do that? And if you don't because there is no formula for that.
No, nobody has a formula. Everybody has to apply it, right? So it is very good. That's what I'm saying. The books will tell you what part. The how part you have to figure it out yourself. And each person will have its own how. Yeah. I did it my way. You may do it in your way. Absolutely. Somebody else did it in some other way. Some country leaders will do in a different way. So every leader will find its own path of doing things. Maybe correct, maybe not correct, maybe correct in your opinion, maybe incorrect in my opinion. But the fundamental principle is that don't tell lies, don't get fearful about consequences, because consequences are going to be your actions. And you can make mistakes. You can make mistakes once, twice, and third time you will know why I'm making the same mistake again and again. You get angry with yourself and say, don't do that. Sure. And then as a leader, you understand it that, okay, I had a problem here in this action. Now I take this, different action. I may get a better results.
Yeah.
And that's how you improve. But fundamental principles, not telling lies, holding on to the information, not being transparent, having a phony face to your people and to other things, being bullying people is not what will take you anywhere as a leader. You might be successful in a company. The revenue, the margins and the EBITDAs and the whatever you call it in the business, it is not it's an end result. People look at the end result, but I think it's a time for people to look at how you achieved it.
So, Lalit, we have few more minutes. So I want to talk a little bit about your book. So what transpired you to write a book? And the title is very intriguing, Driven. How you got that idea? Can you tell a little bit about the thought behind it?
It's very interesting. So when I left the NIIT in 2018 to do something of my own, and I was thinking, what will I do? And I set up a company in management consulting and IT and all those things. But that's the only thing I know, right? And then when I was doing that, I realized, and I started looking at my last 40 years in the information technology industry. I looked at the 4 decades, what I did and how technology changed and how leadership changed. What did I do in different places? And I think it's very interesting. And one of my neighbor, he runs a staffing company. He came and asked me, can you help me on this? And I sat down with him and I started explaining, this is how I did it. So I said, maybe if I write all my experiences in the form of blogs or something, I'll be good. And then somebody told me, why not write a book? I said, I've never written a book. I don't know how to write a book. So I picked up all my blogs and I started looking at my own life. And I said, okay, there are soft traits of a leader. There are hardcore skills in a leader, and there are soft skills in a leader, which is what we call the foundation of a leadership. So I focused on the foundation of the leadership and I picked up those and say, okay, now where did I apply myself? Where did I get a story from my childhood, from my experience in NIIT, in CDOT with Sam Petroda. So
we had Sam Petroda on our show too, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Sam is one of my mentors.
He's phenomenal, amazing.
So I learned firsthand with him from 1985 onward for 4 years. So I enjoyed the journey with him. So I wrote about him in the book also. So and that gave me, and what people have told me, because I never slow down. I never slowed down in my life. 40 years I've been working, making things happen. So I'm always kind of, if I get stopped, I get up again and, start running. So that's the topic, the title Driven came from. That I'm self-driven person in the sense that I don't care. I want to do things the way I want to do it.
Lalit, I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy this show and they will learn great things. They can always look up to you and go to LinkedIn and check Lalit, what he is doing. Check his book on Amazon. And thank you so much. And thank you very much to all of our audience. Without you, we don't have a show. Please send me all your feedback, comments on Facebook. I will love to respond to any of that. Thank you very much.